hold them. We can talk about them after. I'll talk for about an hour, and then I want to be really respectful of your time. So I'll stay around and answer any questions that you all have. If you have questions and you don't want to ask them here, shoot me a DM, go to my Instagram, and then you can get a link to my website, shoot me an email, whatever you need. I'm here to help and really want you all to succeed. So I was just at another SEC school last week and was telling them, like, oh, I can't wait to be back at the school up the road. So I couldn't mention Kentucky, but I was talking about how much I wanted to be here. So I graduated from here not too long ago, before this was built. Man, this is awesome. And bleed blue and love Kentucky. So I'm really grateful to be here. So what we're going to talk about a little bit today is what's right with you, right? We live in a world where a lot of times a lot of us walk around and think, what's wrong with me? Or we do something outside of our value system, something that we think, gosh, I can't believe I did that. And immediately we jump to what's wrong with me, or with other people who do something that we wish they wouldn't have done, and we think, what's wrong with them, right? If I could ask myself the number of times I've told myself, what's wrong with me, versus the number of times I've asked myself, what's right with me, I don't even know how different that would be, right? So I would encourage you all to think about today, as we talk here, really what I want you to walk away with is what's right with you. Whether that's, hey, like, maybe I'm misusing alcohol, or maybe I use drugs sometimes, or maybe I misuse food, or maybe it's the guy that you can't seem to get away from, but they're bad news, right? Like, we all have something that we're using, and we immediately think to, oh my gosh, why do I keep going back to this guy? What's wrong with me? And what I would argue is that there's nothing wrong with you. You have a legitimate need, and you're going to an illegitimate source to get that need met, right? So maybe something happened to you in your life, and you have a lot of pain, and you carry that around. And when I say something happened, it doesn't have to be something big and traumatic. It could be things that we consider little, like maybe my parents didn't pay attention to me enough, or I'm lonely, or I don't know where I fit in here, right? And because of that, you go to alcohol and drugs to fix your pain, right? So I would say there that something's right with you, that you're looking to a solution to a problem that you have. Or maybe you want to know if you're desirable, if you're lovable. And so you're going to a guy, or I guess a girl in some cases, and you're wondering, like, am I okay? Like, am I lovable? Well, something's right with you, that you're looking to get that need met, right? And so that's my hope today. We're going to talk a little bit about freedom. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery. We're going to talk a little bit about, what it looks like to use substances. And before I started doing some of this speaking, before I started getting into my own recovery, there was a lot of the stuff that I didn't even know, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how do you have a full life? Like, how do you really know that something's right with you? How do you like yourself? If I asked you all, I've done this enough and I've decided to stop doing it, but if I asked the people in the room who really, really genuinely, when you went to bed at night, thought, I like myself, if I said, raise your hand, and we could really see who was being honest, I don't know that many of you would say, yeah, that's true for me, right? So, like I said, I graduated from Kentucky in 2012, my undergrad. I studied accounting and marketing, and then I stayed and I did a master's. And while I was here, I was on the golf team, so that was kind of my thing and what I participated in. And then when I got out of school, I went and worked at Nike out in Portland, Oregon. Did that for a while, and then decided that wasn't it. And we'll talk a little bit about my story. And so I did what all people do when that's not working. I moved halfway across the world to Africa, and I lived there for a while. Did a lot of things there, and then I decided, that wasn't working. Because here's the problem. Everywhere I went, there I was, right? So eventually, if you keep trying to outrun yourself enough, you'll realize that, crap, everywhere I go, somehow there I am. And no matter what city you're in or what country you're in, like, the same things, you keep doing the same things. You keep dating the same person. You keep misusing the same substances, right? Or the same types of things that you misuse. And so eventually I found myself in Nashville, which is where I live now. A little over 3 years ago, I stepped into my own recovery journey. and decided that for me to be in recovery, I needed to stop using drugs and alcohol. So that means no drugs, no alcohol. That's 3 years, nights, weekends, holidays, breakups, happy times, sad times, all the times, right? Including marijuana. Sometimes people ask me, well, do you smoke? So no marijuana, no nothing, right? And this is what I do now because I care about people, and I think, man, had somebody come into my life a little bit sooner and asked me, gave me some solutions or gave me some answers to what was going on, maybe I would have listened, maybe I would have heard, maybe I would have just seen that somebody out there is sober, right? So anyway, that's a little bit about me. And in my story, as many of you all probably experienced yourself, I spent a lot of time thinking about how to be free, how to like myself, right? And I'm a therapist now, in addition to speaking, and so I hear a lot of people come into my office and realize that this is much a part of my story is, there's this do whatever feels right mentality, right? So base your decision on whatever feels right at the moment, and if it feels good, do it. And if it doesn't feel good, then don't do it. I think YOLO is a little outdated now, but YOLO, like you only live once, so live it up. And what I've come to realize is that freedom actually is not the absence of limits. Freedom is not being able to do whatever you want, but rather freedom is about knowing which limits you need to have. So as I mentioned, for me, part of me being able to be in recovery of who I was made to be, and part of me being free is that I don't drink and I don't drug. Because like I tell people sometimes when they ask me why I don't drink, I say, one is too many and 1,000 are never enough. When I start drinking, the keg comes out, and, who knows what's going to happen, right? Like, sometimes it's very fun. A lot of times it's probably fun for people around me in most cases. And then eventually it kind of becomes not that fun, because the night probably ends in me getting blacked out and somebody having to take care of me, right? Those are the good nights, probably. And when it gets really bad, I might end up in the hospital. But it's not that bad, right? I'm living once. Because you only live once, and so whether it's a line of Coke on the table, why not, right? Or a drink, or going on a trip, like sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing. But freedom is not the absence of limits. Like, we've got that wrong, okay? Freedom is about knowing which limits to have. Because I'll ask you, if we think about a train, right? So if a train is created to carry people and products, people and things, at high speeds across distances, right? I don't know if any of you all have been on a train, but they go fast and they're pretty useful when they're doing what they are made to do, which is travel on a track. But if the train came up to you and said, gosh, I'm sick of this track, right? This track sucks. I'm not free. I want to be able to go wherever I want to go and do whatever I want to do. Like, YOLO, I only have one life as a train, right? So I'm just going to go live off this track and do whatever I want. Well, that sounds good, right? But the train can't move. I don't know if you've ever seen a train off of a track, but it just sits there. It doesn't move very fast. Or what about a fish out of water, right? If the fish said, I'm tired of being contained by this water. This water sucks. I want to be able to go wherever I want, do whatever I want, and leaves the water. I don't know statistically how long a fish can last out of water, but I think not long, right? So, when we think about that, when you think about that today, regardless of what you're doing, which limits do you need to have in your life so that you can be the most free you? Do you need to avoid the guy that you can't seem to get over, right? Do you need to avoid alcohol? Do you need to avoid drugs? Do you need to go to a certain place to study so you can pass your classes? Because maybe you hate school, and some people hate school and some people love school, but you all seem to still be in it, right? So what kind of limits do you need to have? Right? Because when we think about what we're doing, if you're anything like me or you have any sort of story that I have, we spend a lot of our time doing this. It's almost like I came out of the womb and someone put me up on a ladder and said, climb it, right? Climb it higher. Just be better than that girl over there, or be better than that person over there. And as long as you're better than them, it doesn't really matter that she's better than you, right? So I spent all my time looking up on the ladder, or looking down on the ladder and saying, well, I'm not quite as good as her, but I'm better than her, right? And all the while never feeling good enough, okay? So it didn't matter what I did. or what I accomplished or who I was friends with, something about it, I just never felt like it was enough. So I was never thin enough, I was never smart enough, I was never good enough at golf. I was never pretty enough, I never had the right guy or the right friends. And so I just climb a little higher, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Which some of y'all are doing, right? And the thing about ladders is, like some of them we get to the top, but some of them apparently in this picture we don't. We just keep climbing, and you might do that your whole life. You get out of school and you get the right job, you marry the right guy, and you just keep climbing. Until maybe, like I did, one day you decide to jump off, right? Because there's no freedom climbing a ladder. And the goal is for you to be you, right? Because I am different than you, different than you, different than you. So what you need is different than what I need, and it's different than what the person next to you needs. And the thing about climbing this ladder is, it gets tired. It gets tiring climbing the ladder, right? So eventually you're going to need some way to escape from it. And so for me, I'd often be on the ladder, be on the ladder, be on the ladder, achieve, achieve, achieve. I tell people if I could staple my resume to the front of me, I would have, and to the back of me, so that I could have said, hey, here's Megan, and here's all the things I've accomplished. Don't ask me who I am because I don't know, so I couldn't tell you. But I sure do look good on paper, right? Sure does look good when I was working at Nike and I look out the window and LeBron James would be riding his bike around on campus. My family came out to visit and said, oh my, this is amazing, you can't ever leave here, right? This is the dream job. And I looked at my brother when he said that, and I turned to him and I said, if you, insert, whatever words you want to think of, if you effing want to come work here, you come work here, but I'm not working here. And it wasn't Nike, it's not a job, right? It was the fact that when I was there, I was thinking, gosh, I think I'm made for something different. And even though I went through 6 months of interviews and I had the grades to prove it and I had the resume to prove that I deserved to be there, I never felt like I did. And so I had to get away from that, right? So I'd work during the day, do my day job, and I'd get away and I'd go drink at night with all of my friends who didn't really drink that differently than me. And I did that for a while until it didn't work anymore, right? So I got to the point where eventually I was like, man, I don't really care if I'm alive or if I'm not alive. Because that's where the road leads. If we spend all this time being somebody, trying to be somebody that we're not, eventually it gets tiring and we've got to do something to get away from it. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, right? We all misuse something. I think I've said that. So whether you want to call it misuse, whether you want to call it abuse, whether you want to call it addiction, whatever you want to call it, ask yourself, where are you internally compelled? So where are you doing things? Where are you giving your energy to things that are not your true desires, right? And sometimes we have to do that. I can see you saying, well, going to school is not my true desire, Megan. Do you think I should quit? I don't know. Maybe some of you need to, right? But that's not really the thing that I'm necessarily saying. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to do. Sometimes I ask myself, God, or higher power, or whatever you choose, universe, whatever you choose to call what you think is bigger than you. For me, it's God. I say, God, why are you making me speak? I get so nervous. I don't want to do this. And I think, gosh, because the only thing worse than the fear of speaking is the fear of not speaking. Is the fear of not doing what I was made to do. And so what is it that you're misusing, right? What is it that you're internally compelled and you're giving energy to that isn't really you, that isn't really what you do? A good way to check in with that is, what if I told you you were going to die next year? What would you add to your life? What would you keep doing? And what would you take away? And so asking yourself that question, right? And like I said, sometimes we have goals. So if your goal is to work at Nike, you probably need a degree. And so sometimes there are things we need to do to get where we want to go. So if we look at some of the things we misuse, and this is this small compared to the list, I could give you pages and pages and pages of things that we all misuse or abuse or are addicted to, right? Money, school, food, that's a taco, right? If you live in Nashville, you must eat tacos. And you must be able to talk about which places have the best tacos, okay? Cake, sugar, right? Sugar's more addictive than cocaine. Your phone, I mean, that's like a throwback phone because the iPhone didn't look good up there, but your phone, or maybe it's nicotine, or maybe it's caffeine, right? Or maybe it's love, or relationships, or religion, or working out, or alcohol, or nicotine, or drugs. You know, whatever it is, everybody is probably misusing something. Part of that is just who we are, like how we were made, how we were designed. So everything we're misusing is not necessarily bad. I don't really believe anything is good, bad, right, or wrong. The question really is, does it help you be most fully who you were created to be? And if it doesn't, get rid of it. And if you need help doing that, ask for it, right? Ask me, ask somebody around you. I know there are people, good people in your sorority or your friend groups that you can ask and say, I need help, right? I don't even know what kind of help I need, but I just need some. Because here's the truth of the situation, right? It's a Buddhist prophet, or whatever you want to call him, said this a long time ago, but it's no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So if I asked y'all, you know, do you think the world that we live in is healthy? By show of hands, how many people would say yes? Anybody? No? Okay. So, if that's how you feel, that the world that we're living in is not healthy, then I ask you, why are you comparing what you're doing to the world around you? You know, we've got Instagram, we've got Finstagrams, I've seen some of those, right? What's going on there? So you got your Instagrams, you've got Finstagrams, you've got Twitter, you've got Visco, you've got, you know, whatever else you're using, and you're looking at people and you're scrolling through your feed and you're thinking like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be, right? Or in the case of the Finstagrams, I think this is funny. It's supposed to be funny, but you know, the thing about things that are funny is that normally they have some sort of truth laced in them, right? So if you're asking yourself, if you're saying to yourself, oh, my drinking is no different than so-and-so's drinking, or it doesn't really look different than anybody else I know, I would ask you to consider, you know, what measure of health is it that you're comparing yourself to a sick society? Because I will tell you, as somebody who does a lot of things that are different than maybe the society, it takes a lot of work to be different. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day that's in college, and I was asking them, they were telling me how different they were, and you know, how unique they were, and how, you know, nobody quite goes to as many festivals as they do, and they really know what's going on, and this and that. And I was asking them, you know, had they ever been at a festival sober? I was curious what it had been like, and I also knew the answer was no, right? So I was like, man, I mean, I wonder how different it is. Like, you just told me how different you are, and then you just told me how you are using festival drugs and how you and your friends smoke marijuana all the time. And really, to me, from this side of things, it just seems like you're kind of just like everybody else. Because you want to be different, try not drinking. You know, the first thing people say to me when I say that I don't drink, or I don't always say, like, I don't drink, and I go around and I talk about it, right? I just say, no, I don't want any. And then if they keep asking, and sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, what do you do for fun? You know, I can't imagine not drinking. And I'm like, what do I do for fun? Let's see. I've been skydiving since I've been sober. I've been in a hot air balloon. I've been to Iceland. I've been to Mexico twice in the last 4 months. You know, I've done all sorts of things, right? And part of that has been a result of my recovery journey, which started with my sobriety. At the base level, I'll tell you, when I was early on in my treatment journey, a therapist I was working with asked me to go home, and they said, I want you to draw 2 circles. And in the inside circle, I want you to put all the things, you know, cut out things from magazines and write words and do whatever. And I want you to put the things that are really true about you, things that you know are true. And then on the outer circle, I want you to put all the things that the world knows that are true about you, all the things the world sees. And I thought, okay, yeah, no big deal. Thought it was a hot shot. And I went home and I started doing it. And as many of you all may have had at certain times in your life, I about had a mental, my second or third, or I don't know how many mental crises I had at this point in my life, but I had a mental crisis because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. I don't even know where to start and what to put in this inner circle. And so I remember looking at the clothes I was wearing and thinking, like, are these even clothes I would wear? Right? How did I pick these clothes out? Or is this just like what the people around me wore or what I thought I was expected to wear? And, I felt really sorry for myself for a while, and I wasn't drinking at this point, but I'm sure had I been drinking, I definitely would have gone and done that. And then eventually one day I thought to myself, man, if I don't know who I am, why don't I start doing things and figure it out? So I can tell you in the last 3 years, my first cry of complaint is that I didn't feel feminine enough. So I went and I took Zumba classes, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time. And if you would have been at LA Fitness, you would have seen me running out of the back crying because I felt so uncomfortable and I felt like I was going to crawl out of my own skin, right? But I survived. I survived the Zumba classes, and then I went on and I thought, man, I always wanted to learn how to do my makeup. So I went and took makeup classes. And everything wasn't in the realm of beauty and stuff, but then I thought, I've never really done art, so I did pottery, right? And let's see. I've done pottery. Right now I'm doing a weightlifting type of deal. And before that, I took an improv class, right? Because now that I have the right mind and I don't spend all my time out on Broadway with whatever tourists are in town and getting into whatever I don't need to be doing, getting drunk for the weekend and then waking up feeling like crap, wondering why I did whatever I did the night before, and then basically swearing off saying I'm never going to drink again, and then 2 days later or 3 days later, 4 weeks later, or 6 months later, drinking again, and ending up in the same cycle. Now that I'm not doing all that, I have plenty of time to figure out what I want to do, what I think is fun. And so what is it for y'all? Like, what are the things that you know to be true about yourself? And what do you not know, right? And what would it look like if you stepped into some curiosity about what you would like? Yeah, maybe there's things that you never thought you would do. But I know for me, most of the time when I tell people I took an improv class, they've asked me about it, and I think about 5 people I know have gone and signed up to take the same class, right? So I got on a little tangent. But anyway, back to this. If we're measuring our health by the people we're looking at around us, it's not going to be helpful, right? And if you're really unique in this world, you're probably doing a lot of things that the rest of the people around you are not doing. And so if we even look about what we know from our cultures, right? 40 million Americans ages 12 and up struggle with substance use addiction, right? So it's alcohol and drugs. I don't know if you all are as surprised as me, but 27 million people have all the different types of cancer combined, okay? So we're just looking at addiction. That's just substance abuse, and that's just alcohol and drug abuse, right? That doesn't include anxiety, depression, sexual abuse, or bipolar disorder, or any of the other things in there, right? And that's the thing, nobody's talking about it, right? I was talking to somebody last night, and they were asking me about the rise in suicides, and they were saying, what do you think, why do you think that is? And I was like, I don't know. I don't have any information or any statistics on that, but how many of your friends do you know that go to therapy? This was somebody quite a bit older. And they said, well, yeah, I don't know. And I was like, right, because nobody's talking about it. How many dance blues have you been to for addiction? How many walks have you been to for mental health? How many talks have you been to? How many people have come in and said, hey, this is what's going on and this is where you get help? And so if you are somebody struggling, what would it look like to get help? And if you're somebody who's already getting help and has some answers, has some solutions for people, what would it look like for you to start talking about it? I'm not saying coming up here or being on a stage. I'm talking about just being a little bit more honest with people around you, because I've found for me that most of the time people say, me too. What's counseling like? What's a life coach like? What's a mentor like? What's medication like? Whatever that looks like, right? And then if we go just to college students, 49% of you, so if you look to the person next to you, one of you is binge drinking or abusing prescription or illegal drugs, okay? So if you're looking around and you're saying, what I'm doing isn't really that bad compared to the people around me, well, I don't know. 49% of you are abusing drugs and binge drinking. Then if we take that one step further, 1 in 4 of you are already meet the diagnosis for substance use disorder. Okay? So I'll tell you, in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is what people use to diagnose people, medical professionals use to diagnose people, there's no definition. You don't label somebody with addiction. It's not a medical diagnosis. It's a substance use disorder. So 1 in 4 of you, so let's just say there's 100 people in here, that means 25 of you already meet a medical definition for addiction, right? And the sad thing about that is not that 1 in 4 of you already meet this definition, because that's kind of, in some ways, expected in the society that we live in. But the sad part about that is that only 6% of you will ask for help, right? That's probably, I can't do math in my head right now, but that's probably about 2 of you. And then if we look at Greek life compared to non-Greek life, right? 89% of you drink alcohol compared to 67% of the population. Nothing good, bad, right, or wrong about that. You just drink alcohol, right? 64 of you are binge drinking 4 or more drinks in 2 hours, right? I remember when I first saw that and I was like, I think there's something wrong with that, right? But then I was like, no, I'm fine. 4 40s in an hour, in 2 hours, right? It can be as big of a drink as you want. I'll talk about that a little later. And then 21% of you are using drugs compared to the normal population. So if we look at normal population, I don't know what that means, the non-members, right? So if we look at Greek life, you already have much higher percentages. And then it's like, okay, Megan, like, who cares? You know, we're drinking alcohol, we're binge drinking, it's not that bad. Look at the people around me, who cares? We're using drugs. So we get the consequences, right? 1,800 people die every year between the ages of 18 and 22. 18 and 22, I don't know about that. 1,800 die unintentionally from alcohol-related accidents. That's people that went out, they're just out to have a good time, they're at a date party, they're driving, they're doing whatever, and they don't make it to see the next day, right? And then past that, 97,000 of you are being sexually assaulted in the realm of alcohol, right? I don't even have time to go into sexual assault and what the statistics are of the number of the people in here who have been sexually assaulted and think, oh, well, it's my fault because I was drinking, or he didn't really mean to do that, or whatever. And the little I'll say about that is, if that is part of your story, there's so much healing for you, right? Like, you're not in that alone, and it doesn't matter how much you had to drink. If some male took advantage of you, that's all that we need to know, right? And that you can get help for that. And then I'm sure most of you have already read this, but 700,000 people a year are assaulted by people who have been binge drinking. Okay? And so some of you are thinking, okay, how much is too much? Right? So we'll kind of go through this quickly, but 1 beer, 12 ounces, right? And that's 5% alcohol. That's 1 drink. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you're drinking a 40 and saying it's 1 drink, or maybe you're pouring, when it says distilled spirits, that's 1 shot is 1.5 ounces. When you're pouring as much vodka from your handle into a glass and saying this is 1 drink, it doesn't quite work like that, right? So this is 1 drink, 1 glass of wine, 5 ounces in malt liquor. So that's a higher gravity beer. It's going to be 8-ounce drink. And so how do you know if you're even in the dangerous territory, right? Well, for males, this is like from the internet, but from a reputable source, right? So males, they're drinking more than 4 drinks in 1 day, or females in your case, it's more than 3 drinks on a given day, 7 drinks in a week. And that's drinks like we just saw on the previous slide, 1 drink, right? And then I'd say if you're under 21, right? If you're taking prescription or over-the-counter medicine in a way that it's not prescribed to you. If you're using nicotine products, if you're misusing prescription or over-the-counter drugs, right? And I'm not here to tell anybody that they need to stop drinking. Like, sobriety was a choice for me, right? So that I could be the best version of me. I don't know if that's true for you, right? I'd say if you're under 21, you probably don't need to be drinking. And I'd say that nobody needs to be doing illegal drugs. And for those of you that are using marijuana all the time, and you're being told the biggest lie out there, that marijuana is not addictive, I'm sorry for that, because it sure as hell is addictive. That might be true that you might not have withdrawals from your marijuana use. Your body might not go through withdrawals. But then I'd ask you to consider, what are withdrawals? Because if you stop using, and you tell me, oh, I haven't used in 4 days, well, I tell you, obviously you noticed, right? And then if your anxiety seems to go up because you stopped using, then that seems to be addictive, right? And so I already mentioned this, but what's binge drinking is 4 more drinks, like we've already previously defined, in a 2-hour period, okay? some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, this is so dramatic. You're being so dramatic. I go out, I drink, I have fun. It's college. Woo, this is a good time, right? And if that's where you're at, that's okay, right? I don't know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. But open your eyes, right? Open your ears. For those of you that say, oh, like, I'll stop when I get out of college. I hope you do. And that has not been the case with most people I know, right? That's not been the case for me. I remember sitting, my first thing I misused was exercise and food, okay? So I remember being in some treatment when I was 16, and all I cared about was being thin and looking hot, and that was fine. That's where I was at, and it caused me a lot of pain and probably did a lot of damage to my body I wish I wouldn't have done. But anyway, I remember sitting there when I was 16, and the other girls in this group that I was in were all in their mid-20s. Let's say like 22, 23, and I remember thinking, I'll never be doing that when I'm their age. These people are losers, why are they doing that, okay? And then I woke up one day, and I was 22 years old, and I thought to myself, because my exercising went to not eating, which eventually went to making myself throw up. And eventually I woke up and I was 22 years old, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm like those girls, right? I never stopped. And I can tell you the same thing's true about my alcohol use. I thought, oh, I'm in college. Once I get a job, I'll stop. Let me tell you, Nike has Thursdays. I was drinking at noon. And so were the people around me. Right? That's not the point. So I drank at Nike, and I didn't stop when I had a job there. And I did stop when I was in Africa, but only because it was a little bit difficult to get alcohol. And then I started again. Right? And when I got home from Africa, I eventually went and traveled around Europe for quite a while. And Switzerland has their national holiday, August 1st, every year. It's like the 4th of July on techno steroids. So people are like pain all over them. Like, I'm sure it's a good party, but I really wouldn't know, because around 4 p.m. that day I went to the hospital. And I didn't wake up until about 4 a.m. And I remember laying there and seeing some people come in, and they were in wheelchairs, and they had this what looked like aluminum foil around them, and I thought, what are those people? And there are ambulances, and maybe that just says a little bit about the festival, that there was all that going on, right? And it wasn't until later that my friend who had gone to visit there, because I was traveling around Europe by myself, said, oh yeah, that happened to you too, right? And I remember waking up, and I thought to myself, how in the heck did I end up there? I was 24 years old. And I thought, oh my gosh, I almost died. I saw my blood alcohol content. I don't even know to this day what else I was doing besides drinking, or what happened to me. And I thought, how did I end up here? And I do not want to die. And I almost just did. And so I'd love to tell you, the next day I flew back to America and I got sober, but that's not what happened. I decided that day, I felt really, really sick, and I thought to myself, I'm never drinking again. And if I had $1 for every time I said I wasn't drinking again, I don't know, I'd have jars and jars and jars full of dollars. I had a lot of money, right? And I said, I'm not drinking again. And I remember I got back to the States, and I moved to Nashville, and I remember telling my friends who knew what happened in Switzerland, I said, don't worry, I'm only drinking beer now, right? And I did that for a while, until I decided to do something different. But if you believe that you're going to stop doing drugs, you're going to stop drinking, or you're going to stop over-exercising, or you're going to stop the relationship with the boy because you graduate from college and you get a job, I really hope you do, okay? I really hope you do. And it's just not likely. That's not my story, and it's not many, 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 many other people I know whose stories that are like that. And so if we jump back to alcohol, for those of you that are saying you don't have a problem, and I'm not even necessarily concerned with this so much as, are you being the best version of you with whatever you're using, right? But just so you know, statistically, this is from the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. If you meet 1 out of 4 of these, you already qualify for abuse, substance abuse, okay? So if you have problems at work, home, or school, I would define problems as you're not passing your classes, or you're not performing as well as you think you would like to. Do you have problems with your family or friends? I think a pretty good indicator, has anyone ever mentioned to you that you might have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, drugs, sex, love, boys, money, whatever, food, exercise. Are you a physical danger to yourself? So if you black out when you're using, you are a physical danger to yourself. If you have sex with someone when you don't want to, and it's not healthy for you, you are a physical danger to yourself. If you've gotten in trouble with the law, that's arrested, that's MIP, that's DUI, that's license taken away, right? That's just the consequence. And that's just abuse, right? So if we come on over to addiction, 3 out of the 7, okay? So increased tolerance. Tolerance, that means that you need more and more to get drunk. You need more and more of whatever you're using to create the same effect. Whether that's a drug, whether that's a drink, whatever it is, okay? Withdrawal, we've talked about that. The biggest thing that you can withdraw is, yes, sure, it is your body going through, like maybe having the shakes, if that's what you see it. But I know a lot of people who are in recovery from drugs and alcohol, a lot of young people who have never been through withdrawal. Yeah, sure, if you're using heroin, you probably are going to go through withdrawals. But most people that get into recovery at a young age are more binge drinking than anything else. Okay? And then we've already talked about the marijuana thing. Like the withdrawal, I think a good thing to ask yourself, whatever you're going to stop using so that you can step into freedom, are you having withdrawal in terms of anxiety, right? Because let me tell you, I thought that the only alcoholics in this whole world were people living under bridges, okay? And now I know that they look a lot more like me and you. They look like doctors, they look like lawyers, they look like nurses, they look like people living under bridges, and everything in between, men, women, young people, old people, okay? So are you using greater use for longer periods of time? Do you have a lack of control when you're using? Do you have a preoccupation with getting whatever you're trying to get? Are you in important activities, are you abandoning them? Whether that's showing up for your chapter meetings or showing up for class or whatever it is. And then are you using despite harm and consequences? Kind of like I said when I went to the hospital in Switzerland and then kept using. That's called using despite consequences. Going to a date party and getting really drunk for something bad happening or getting in trouble with your sorority and continuing to use, that's using despite consequences, right? And so you might be sitting there asking yourself, well, one, there's some of you that think this is like a little bit overdramatic. And then there's some of you that think, okay, so, I kind of do connect with some of this. What do I do now, right? There's everything from checking yourself into rehab tomorrow, or tonight, right? To getting a mentor, to asking somebody in your leadership for help, to sending me a DM, to sending me an email, right? To therapy, which I already have resources in the community. If you want to go to therapy, there's resources on campus. To getting more involved in your faith tradition. I've seen people have healing through yoga, whatever it is. Like, there are a million options. So what are you supposed to do now? My question would be, what do you need to do, right? You need to tell your mom, you need to not tell your mom. Like, do you need to go to rehab? Do you need to not go to rehab? Do you need to get a mentor? Do you need to not? Like, I don't know what it is for you. I can help you figure that out, or there's other people in your life that are willing to help you figure that out, but I can't give you a one-size-fits-all. The worst thing I could do is tell everybody in here that they never need to drink or drug again and go out and follow my command and live a happy life, right? But what I know from the work that I do, whether it's life coaching or whether it's therapy or whether it's speaking, is that people do things when they're ready, right? And what I believe is that everything is a teacher. So no matter what experience you've had or will have, there's going to be some growth that comes out of it. My hope is that it won't have to be too painful for you, right? I was talking about failure the other day with somebody in my life, and I told them that I don't think I've failed at anything in my life, right? And I've already told you all, I could tell you a million other stories about the Switzerland one, and I could tell you some stories about things that really lacked integrity that I did in terms of my classwork and school, in terms of on the golf course, and things that people probably looked at me and thought she would never do that. Things I probably thought to myself, I would never do that. But when you're playing golf to figure out if you're lovable, or you're going to school to figure out if you're lovable, or if you're good enough, you do a lot of shady things, right? That I wish I wouldn't have done. And so if I reiterate something, it's this. But what you're using is not your problem, it's your solution. So if you are misusing alcohol, and you say to yourself, which I said to myself many, many times, alcohol is my problem. Everything I do that's outside my value system is because I'm drinking, right? And what's the old adage, like, something bad didn't happen every time I was drinking, but every time I was drinking, something bad happened. Yeah, that might have been true, but alcohol, again, was not my problem, it was my solution. My problem was that I didn't know who I was, that I didn't feel like I was good enough, that I had a lot of hurt and pain in my story, and that no matter where I was or where I went, there I was, and that most people would have looked at me and seen a smile on my face and thought, oh, maybe I want to be her, right? A lot of people had said to me at times that they wanted to be me, and I remember thinking to myself, gosh, seems like, the only person that doesn't want to be me is me, right? I would have traded places with probably any number of you to get away from being me. And so all of us are doing this in some way. We all think we have this problem in our life. Maybe it's the guy that we, like I've mentioned, the guy you can't get away from. And you think, gosh, Daniel, I seem to have dated a lot of Daniels in my life. Daniel is my problem. If I could just get rid of Daniel, then my life would be okay. At one point, actually, not that long ago, I told myself I just need to not date anybody named Daniel. And maybe that would work out better for me. But if I could just get rid of Daniel. But the problem was not Daniel, right? The problem was that I picked guys that weren't very healthy for me. I picked guys because I had real needs, that I was lovable, that I was desirable, that I was beautiful. And I would pick a guy to try to tell me those things, and they never could. So what's my problem? My problem is not Daniel. My problem is that I don't know that I'm lovable. I don't know that I'm worthy. I don't know that I'm okay. And so I found a solution in a boy that worked for a while until it didn't. Because that's the thing about a lot of things we're misusing. Or maybe it's accomplishment, right? Like achievement, all the things that I accomplished, they weren't my problem. They were my solution, right? My solution to thinking, if I just achieve enough things, then I'll be okay. So if you're misusing drugs or alcohol, or if people around you are misusing drugs and alcohol, hear it from me, that is not their problem. That is their solution. So maybe ask them, in a kind way, what their problem is, what problem they're trying to solve. Because I don't know anybody, those of you that say you drink and drug to have fun, let me ask you, what is so fun about getting so obliterated that you don't even remember what happened? If your life is so fun, I promise you this, if your life is so fun, you will not have to get so drunk or so high to get away from it, if your life is that good. You will not have to get blackout so you don't remember it. And so there's this story, if we think about the problem versus the solution thing, we can learn a lot from rats, right? So there's this scientist in the 70s who did this experiment with rats, and what he did is he put this one rat, this is like a really nice drawing, because normally rats kind of gross me out, but he put this rat in a cage by himself, just rat, blank cage, probably not like purple background, probably just, white lab, metal bars. And he had these 2 bottles of water, okay? So one of the waters, like you can see, was just water. And the other one was water laced with cocaine and heroin. Sounds like the rat was going to have a good time. And so the rat, what they found in the experiment is that the rat drank so much of the cocaine and heroin water that it died, okay? Every rat they put in the cage, this wasn't just this one defective rat. Every rat they put in the cage would drink so much of the laced water, the drug-laced water, that it died, okay? And for those of you who have done drugs like that, or drank or whatever, typically you have symptoms before you die. So this rat was drinking, was getting a nice rat high, whatever that was like for him, and probably having a good time at first. It probably was awesome, like, gosh, he hit the jackpot. He was in a cage with, cocaine-laced water. But eventually he probably started having a lot of side effects from that using, and he kept using it anyway, and then he died. So what they said was, alcohol and drugs, they're so addictive that if you use them one time, you're going to eventually get so addictive that you can't get off and you die. But what I would ask you there is, if any of you all know anybody who've had a big injury, and maybe they were in the ICU, or maybe they had hip surgery or whatever kind of surgery, and they put them on this stuff called morphine, which is the purest form of heroin, and they were on it for a long time. When they got out of the hospital and they got off of the morphine, Did you happen to see them shooting up heroin on the streets? If your answer is no, then it can't possibly just be that simple. If we give someone heroin, or we give someone morphine, or we give someone cocaine, or we give someone alcohol, or anything else that's so addictive that they're going to get that addicted to it, right? There was a study done, 20% of the soldiers that were in the Vietnam War were using heroin when they were overseas. And when they came back, and they were using heroin regularly, when they came back to the States, 95% of them just stopped, right? They just stopped. And so, what can we learn from the rat? This other smart scientist continued the rat experiment, and he thought to himself, this rat is in this cage. I don't know if he really thought like this, but this is what I imagine. He was like, oh, this rat is in this cage all by himself. It's probably pretty lonely being a little rat in a cage. Like, I would use cocaine water too. And so he said to himself, this is me, I guess, being the scientist and doing the experiment. If I was in the cave by myself, I might use the cocaine water too. This is just regular water. So anyway, he said, I'm going to redo the experiment, and I'm going to create this place called Rat Park, right? I'm going to create Disneyland for rats. He put all the best rat toys in there, and he put all the rat's friends in there, all his family, but he left out the family that causes the problems. I don't know if this is true, so I'm making up. And he put just only his good friends and only the rides that he liked in there. And what they found, and they also put the cocaine water in there, and they put the regular water. And what they found was not a single rat died. Not a single one. There were a few that tried the cocaine water, but they didn't go back to it once they figured out what happened when they used it. Because they had all their friends, they had their toys, they had their Disneyland world for rats. And what I would say is that, some people would say this experiment is oversimplified, right? They would say, it's not that simple. There's genetics. Yes, there is. We all have genetics that play a role in the things we do. And, we can't quite create Rat Park, right? I'm a human being just like you all, so that means I have gifts, I have limitations. Sometimes my greatest gifts are my greatest limitations. Ask my family how much I talk, right? Gift here, limitation there. But if we think about that, and we think about what these rats got, perhaps what they got met was the need that they wondered inside of them to know that they belong and they matter. Maybe they got love, right? So the rat wasn't lonely anymore. And so then the question becomes, how do you create your own rat park, right? Again, it's not going to be that simple. You can't just go through the world and never have any pain or never have any suffering. But I can tell you it's a heck of a lot easier when you get rid of the things that are really preventing you from being who you are made to be, and you get some help and you step into being yourself, the best version of yourself, whatever that looks like. Because like I said, recovery is about recovering who you were made to be. We've got this all backward, right? We think that if we do, somehow it will tell us who we are. So if I do enough things, if I play golf, then I must be a golfer, right? Well, actually what I found out is that I played golf for 20 years, and I didn't really like it, okay? So what I did is I just stopped playing, and my life is a lot better now. I do a lot of coaching, and I like that. But if I stop looking to what I do to tell me who I am, then maybe I can look to who I am, and then I can go do that, right? Like maybe I can be curious about doing improv like I talked about, and then I can go do improv. And then it can maybe tell me, if I know who I am, then I can tell me what to do. So then you're asking, how do you do that? Well, I could give you books upon books upon books. Let's talk about swimming. I can give you all these books, and I can tell you to read these books, and then I can ask you, all the books tell you what it's like to go swimming, how to swim, blah, 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 swimming, all that. And then if I ask you what it's like, what was it like to go swimming? What's it like when you go underwater, right? What's it like to swim fast, or to swim slow, or to swim in this ocean, or that ocean, or this pool, or that pool? Well, you'll say, I don't know, I've only just read the books about it. I've watched it on TV, watched all the Netflix, however many episodes there are on how to swim. But you don't know what it's like. And so I can stand up here all day and tell you what it's like to like myself. I can tell you what it's like to know who I am and still be trying to figure out who I am, because I don't think we can ever arrive at that destination. So I can tell you that all day. I can tell you what it's like to be sober. I can tell you what it's like to not be sober. I can tell you what it's like to figure out what I need and what I don't need. You know, we were laughing. Some of my friends were with me, and we were laughing. They were like, tell them about when you did Whole 30. And I did the Whole 15, I'll tell you. For 15 days, I did the Whole 30, and it was the most miserable experience of my life. My friends loved it. My one friend still kind of lives that lifestyle. She thinks it's awesome. It really gives her a lot of freedom to be herself. But, you know, I was really not kind. I was really not nice. I thought my life was miserable. I love cookies and I love sweets and whatever. I'm sober so I can eat sweets, right? So, you know, I did this Whole 30 for 15 days, and I'm no quitter, so I was going to do it. This wasn't that long ago, like January 1st, because everybody does everything then, right? So about January 15, I thought, why in the heck am I doing this? I don't even like doing this. I'm only doing this to prove to my friends that I can do it, and to myself that I can do it, but I already know I can do it. Shit, if I can stay sober for 3 years, I can surely do Whole 30 for 30 days. And then I thought to myself, I don't need to do this. I don't care. Like, I do not care. So I quit, and I ate the cookies, and I was significantly happier. And I still am eating cookies to this day, and still happier. So that's great. Some people need to do Whole 30, and some people don't, right? But what does it look like for you to jump in? What can you do now? What do you want to jump into now? What are you thinking about now that you'd like to do? What does it look like for you to step into who you were made to be? Because we talked about this a little bit, but I can tell you this is true, and it's true, it's true, it's true, it's true. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Okay? So, like we talked about, you know, you're not going to stop using because you suddenly get out of school. You're not going to stop binge drinking because you get out of school. I can't tell you how many people in their 30s I know that are still binge drinking, and I'm thinking, gosh, college was so long ago. Like, are you going to stop doing that? Right? It's not cool anymore. If it ever was cool, I don't know. I don't want to promote that. But if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? It's like saying, I'm going to talk about diets again, but it's like saying, you know, I'm going to stop eating X, Y, and Z on Monday. Or I'm going to, what is today, April 9th? I'm going to start the Whole 30 on May 1st. You know, why not today? Why not now? What do you need to change now? Because I don't know if it can wait till tomorrow. And then the next question is, like, you know, everybody talks about your tribe, but who's in yours, okay? Because you will become like the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I know this is like, I've heard this probably a million times. And it's also true, guys. It's true. I have some friends, some of the women up here are sober, and 2 of them are sober, and the other 5 aren't. So I'm not saying you gotta go find all sober friends. But you know what's true about all these women? One, what's true is that they all show up. They show up where they say they're going to be, okay? Some of them I've gone to Mexico with, some of them I've traveled the world with, right? But all of these women are all pursuing being who they were made to be. They're all pursuing being the best versions of themselves. Whether they're coaches or counselors or badass lawyers, right? Or Titans cheerleaders. They're all telling the truth about what it's like to be them. They're all pursuing what they're curious about. And while some of them that means abstaining from drugs and alcohol, some of that means abstaining from certain foods or certain boys, or I'm looking up there trying to think about things that people abstain from. But who's in your tribe? And please do not leave here and say, oh, we heard this girl talk, and she said we're going to become like the 5 people we surround ourselves with. You're not really good for me, you're kind of toxic, so you're out, right? I'm not going on like, I'm not saying to do that. What I am saying to do is, I'll pause, go to me. Yeah, you're good. Thank you.